lighting equipment around.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Mohammed Ali. Today I study at high school foundation. तो आज का टास्क है कॉलिंग शुरू करते हैं 3, 2, 1 स्टार्ट. तो टाइटल का नाम है Wood, the backbone of early civilization. So the question one is what made food so important to early humans?
Welcome, Ramada. Ready when you are? For early humans, it was all about the move from just surviving to actually thriving. Once people found reliable ways to get food, they didn't have to spend every waking second hunting or gathering. That freed them up to build permanent homes, develop tools, and eventually create the first real cities. Basically, stable food was the spark that let everything else happen. New home. It sounds like a big project. What kind of work are you doing on it?
So the question 2 is when did humans first begin using wood as a tool?
I'll look that up. Apparently, the earliest evidence goes way back, about 430,000 years. Those tools were found at a site called Marihusa 1 in Greece. One of them is believed to have been a digging stick, which really shows just how resourceful people were even then. What's next on the list?
Talk nicely. So the question 3 is how did wood help early humans build shelter?
I think I know this one. Wood was essentially the structural backbone for them. It let people go from just leaning against a cave wall to actually building frameworks for huts and shelters. They could weave branches together for walls and use logs for sturdy roofs to keep the rain and wind out, turned a temporary camp into something that actually felt like a home.
So the question 4 is why was wood useful for making weapons?
It really comes down to the basics: strength and reach. It was lighter and more flexible than stone, which meant they could create distance between themselves and their prey. A sharpened branch became a spear, and that leap and reach changed everything for early hunters. Plus, later on, the flexibility of wood was exactly what made things like bows and arrows possible. What's the next question?
So the 5th question is how did early people use wood for hunting?
That's where the ingenuity really kicks in. Spears were the big game changer for the direct kill, but wood was also great for trapping. They could build pits or snares that did the work while they waited. It basically let them outsmart their prey instead of just chasing it down.
So the question 7 is what type of trees were commonly useful to early civilizations?
Honestly, a lot of it depended on where they were, but hardwoods were generally the MVP because they didn't snap under pressure. They looked for trees that provided the right balance of durability and flexibility. In Europe, oak was a huge deal for structures, while something like ash was prized for tool handles and spears because it can take a hit without breaking. Palm trees were the lifeline for people in warmer climates, providing everything from roof thatch to food. It was basically a natural hardware store.
So the question 8 is how did food help humans travel?
You might have meant how food helped humans survive,
No,
if that's what you meant.
no. So the question 8 is how did wood help humans travel?
Struggle? That's a pretty good.
Travel.
Do you mean how having to find food
So the
forced people to
question
travel.
it is how did wood help humans travel?
Oh, the hunt led the way. Humans basically spent thousands of years just following their dinner. When the herds moved, people moved. That need for a steady meal is what pushed them out of their comfort zones and across entire continents. It's wild that something as simple as hunger ended up mapping out the world for us. What's the next one?
So the question 9 is when did people begin making wooden boats?
Let me check. You'd think boards were a much later invention, but evidence actually goes way back. There's a polished plank from the Jordan Valley that's about 780,000 years old. There's also some pretty sophisticated shaping and joining from Zambia that's nearly 500,000 years old. Humans were basically woodworking before we even became modern humans. What else is on your list?
So the question 10 is how did wooden boats change explorations?
Wait, hold on. I think I missed a piece of that. What was the question?
So the question 10 is when how did wooden boats change exploration?
The boat was the breakthrough.
So
Once
the
humans
question
learned
10 is how did wooden boats change exploration?
the boat was the game changer. They basically went from just hugging the shoreline in dugouts to building actual rafts and ships. It opened up the world in a way that land travel never could, letting people cross oceans to reach new continents and set up trade routes. They didn't just find new lands, they connected the world.
So the question 12, question 11 is how was wood used to make wheels?
The wheel is where physics really meet craftsmanship. They started with a technique where they'd slice a round cross section off a sturdy log to make a solid disc. Once they figured out spokes, it changed everything. By cutting out the center and adding reinforced supports, they created wheels that were much lighter and faster without losing the strength they needed to haul heavy loads.
So the question so the question 12 is how did wooden wheels improve transportation?
It turned a slog into a breeze. Once we stopped dragging things on sleds, we could haul way more weight over much longer distances. It wasn't just about speed, it was about capacity. We could move massive amounts of crops or building materials in a fraction of the time. It essentially shrank the world and let the first real trade networks take off.
So the question 13 is why was wood an important source of fuel?
Fire is basically the ultimate cheat code. Before
So
that, humans were just
the question 13 is why was wood an important source of fuel?
it's the ultimate survivor's fuel. It was everywhere, which made it the perfect first choice for starting fires. But beyond just keeping people warm, it was a total game changer for early medicine and nutrition. Being able to boil water or cook food didn't just make things taste better. It killed off parasites and made calories way easier for the body to absorb. It basically unlocked a whole new level of human health.
So the question 14 is how did early humans use wood for cooking?
They turned fire into a tool. Wood was the heartbeat of the home. Beyond just feeding the fire, they'd carve out everything from bowls to spoons for serving. They'd even use green wood as skewers to roast meat over the flames. It was really the first kitchen set. What's the next question on your list? I've lost you. Still there? You've got the momentum. What's number 15? Oh, I think we just hit a loop. You're just repeating me. You're on a roll with number 14. You want to keep going with 15?
So the question 15 is, how did firewood help people survive cold weather?
It basically carved out a livable space in a frozen world. Wood fires didn't just keep people from freezing in the moment, they were the key that unlocked the rest of the planet. Once they could actually warm up a shelter, humans weren't stuck in the tropics anymore. They could follow food into colder climates and survive winters that would have otherwise been a death sentence. It essentially gave them a portable bubble of warmth. You're on a roll. Is there a number 16 coming?
So the question 16 is, how was wood used to build early houses?
It was all about the framework. People started by just propping up branches for basic lean-tos, but then they figured out posts and beams. They'd sink heavy logs into the ground to create a sturdy skeleton for the house, then weave smaller branches between those posts and smear them with mud or clay to keep the wind out. For the roof, they'd layer on grass or tree bark to make it waterproof. Basically took them from shivering in a cave to actually having a front door. You've almost nailed the whole list. 17 coming up.
So the question 17 is,
I'm
what
listening.
tools were needed to shape wood?
Go on.
What tools were needed to shape wood?
It all started with stone. Before they had metal, they used flint and obsidian. They did basically create stone axes and chisels to chip away at the wood and shape it. Once bronze and an iron hit the scene, they could carve and refine things way more precisely. It was a slow evolution from just hacking away at a log to actually crafting something detailed.
So the question, so the question 18 is how did early humans cut down trees?
It started with a lot of grit and some very sharp rocks. Before metal, they used heavy stone axes to chop or scraped flint to peel bark. When things got tougher, they'd use fire to burn through the base of a tree and then pull it down. It was slow, brutal work, but it got the job done.
So the question 19 is how did people move heavy wooden logs?
It was all about reducing friction. One of the smartest moves they made was using logs to move logs. They'd lay down a series of smaller rollers and
Talk nicely.
literally roll. My bad. What would you like me to change?
Say like you're pagal.
Got it. So they'd lay down a row of smaller rollers and literally roll the heavy log right over them. It's honestly a brilliant bit of physics. No wheel needed, just some smart planning. What's number 20?
So the question 20 is how did wood contribute to the growth of villages?
Wood was basically the glue that held the first villages together. It allowed people to stop being nomads and start building permanent fences and storehouses, which meant they could keep a surplus of food. And you have a way to store a year's worth of grain, more people can move in, and suddenly you've got a thriving community instead of just a camp.
Hello. So the question 22 is what wooden tools were used by early farmers?
Wait, did we just skip 21? You're moving too fast for me. Are we just tossing 21 out the window? Or do you want to circle back to it? Caught red-handed. I'm just keeping score. Since we're charging ahead to 22, early farmers were all about the plow and the hoe. They used wooden handles with stone or bone tips to break up the earth and plant seeds. Basically, they turned the forest into a garden.
So the question 23 is how are wooden logs developed?
Sorry, I think I missed a piece of that one. Did you mean how they used wood to block the wind?
So the question 3 is how did wooden floors develop?
Floors, nice. You're really powering through this list today. Actually, that's a really cool piece of history. It looks like wooden flooring started way back in ancient Egypt around 3000 BCE, with people using rudimentary planks to surface their homes and temples. A bit later, between 1600 and 1100 BCE, the Hittites were using planks for flooring in caves near the Black Sea. Then the Greeks and Romans took it to a whole new level by adding intricate inlays and veneers to make things feel more polished. It's wild that we're still using essentially the same idea thousands of years later. What's next?
So we will end this conversation. So Allah Hafiz.
It was a pleasure, Ramada. Allah Hafiz. Talk soon.